I've got Brian Wang with me, and Brian, I am just going crazy trying to figure out what's going on with Tesla right now because Elon's back.
Right.
Since he's back, he's making news like every minute.
Hmm.
Post. I was complaining last week that he was only posting about XAI, but now
Hmm.
he's definitely starting to post about Tesla as well.
Hmm.
So at the top of my list, because you are the guru on this, I haven't seen anybody else pick up the mantle. What are you seeing in Austin in terms of, are there more cars? Are there any more incidents? I haven't seen anything for days.
I'm not sure Austin is updating um,
The incidents?
the incidences. Yeah, because I haven't seen a new thing for August, so they just have up to July,
Oh,
and Waymo averages about you know 6 to 12 or so incidents per month,
uh-huh.
and that's pretty stable.
Okay.
So they don't seem to be updating so
Oh,
far for all of August.
interesting. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Okay. And then I haven't, have you heard anything? Because I haven't heard anything. As far as I know, they haven't added any more cars. So they're still, like in the 11, 12, 13 range.
Mhm.
We haven't opened it up to, all comers. Nothing happening there that I've been able to see.
Other than Elon tweeting out that he said that they had increased the size of the service area again. So they've made
Yes.
these huge increases in the service area size,
Right.
85, 100 square miles or something, which is strange because you normally need 2 to 5 vehicles per square mile, and
Right.
they haven't done that because it's still kind of imitation only. Yeah. So it seems close. The fact that there's no new incidences now that's been 2 months, we're definitely at, one non-critical incident
Right.
for 15,000 miles. So that's a good number because when I look at that for, let me just quickly share a slide on, again, a rough estimate because we don't have really um, good estimates on these things. So here we have a little thing where we're saying, okay, FSD 11, 100 or so miles per critical intervention.
Right.
FSD 12 in the 600-mile range, that's 6 times improvement.
Mhm.
Um, FSD 13 might be around 3,800, 4,000 miles. And then the Austin build at about 15,000 plus. And then we're going to get a 10 times parameter version next month, FSD 14,
Right.
which could be 6 times 4,000, 24,000, or 38,000, or if it's multiple of the Austin build, it could be maybe an eventual version could be 10 times that at like 150,000 or 24,000, 240,000 miles per intervention, which would be very much at the um, a good human level. And,
Right.
and then beyond what Waymo's doing.
So Elon said that it's almost like it's sentient. And I had
Mhm.
to laugh because my wife and I have been having this argument now for a very long, not an argument because we both agree with each other, but I would call it an ongoing philosophical argument about whether these machines can ever become sentient.
Mhm.
But I will tell you that on my little trip today, because I have this client I go visit,
Mhm.
and 60 miles round trip, and it was a perfect drive,
Mhm.
absolutely nothing wrong, but it did do something very sentient. Normally, it will not go in uh, uh, what do you call it, the carpool lane. Even when both of us are in the car, when we got two people, it still won't go over in the carpool lane. It just
Mhm.
won't.
Yeah.
So we're going along, and the cars in front of us are only going so slow. They're going,
Mhm. Yeah.
a little bit under the speed limit, maybe.
Yeah.
And it decides to get into the carpool lane. It goes up to 80 miles an hour to pass these three cars and then immediately pulls back in.
Mhm.
That's like exactly what a human might do.
Right. Right. Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so, and that's the first time I've ever even seen it go in the carpool lane without me, putting on the blinker to make it go into the carpool lane. So I
Right.
think that was close to sentient. What do you think?
Yeah. I think that the certain times when you experience AI, um, where it's using other information that is stored in its memory, that yeah, you get the sense that it went beyond. It's not just automating a basic task.
Right.
It's doing more to it. I don't think it's sentience. It's just that it's
Oh, no.
more than what you expect of like if this was a good mechanical system, I could see it, like a really advanced driver assist,
Right.
a really advanced cruise control,
Right.
right? That's like, okay, it's doing this well, no accidents. That's nice. But then it does this kind of beyond level, which is people saw that, like the really great Go players or chess players saw these moves and just the nature of them of being beyond what was right
Right.
in front of them. It felt uh, like there was more intelligence there,
Right.
right?
Right.
So not intelligent, not sentience, but necessarily, but extreme intelligence beyond what is currently available
Yeah,
is what I mean.
I'm going to come back to that question more broadly in a few minutes, but let's stick with Robotaxi for now. We have hires now in Chicago being announced today.
Mhm.
So that's just in a few days. We've got New York City. We've got this broadening out of the hires.
Yeah,
Well, I don't think you're going to go start hiring people and paying people money in cities where you don't expect to go soon.
right,
I would think within 90 days. I can't imagine that you're going to start hiring people uh, unless you're putting out the applications and you don't plan to actually make the hires for 60 days and then it'll be 90. But sometime in the next 3, 4, 5 months, they must be thinking they're going to New York and Chicago. That would be the kind of fast rollout Elon intimated at when he said, 50% of the US population.
right. Yeah, so that definitely is showing the acceleration that the plans are far bigger than certainly what the pessimists are thinking. And then there's also FSD approvals and trials, like FSD, Tesla Japan says they're doing intensive testing of FSD there, various places in Europe, other places in Asia. It's FSD is going everywhere, and Robotaxi is going everywhere.
Yeah, so the implication would be there's a great deal of confidence right now among the Tesla employees and executives, including
Mhm.
Elon, that it's ready to be placed in front of all of the folks that need to judge it, and that they will come back with a smile on their face, going, "Okay, this is." And it comes back to the statement I made a long time ago. It only has to be better than Waymo.
Right, right,
If Waymo's on the roads already, then
right,
if it could beat Waymo in terms of interventions or whatever the kind of stuff they want to use.
right.
And then uh, somebody made a very big point of it again. It's not like we haven't talked about it before, but it's like at some point there should be this weighing going on. If you're going to be ethical at all with regard to this decision-making process, okay, the number one safety thing that people put on humans, actually, there's two of them I can think of right off the bat. One was seatbelts, and the other was helmets on bicycles. And everybody's like, "Oh, you shouldn't force people to wear helmets," and "Oh, you shouldn't force people to put these seatbelts on." And yeah, sure, you could end up underwater with your door jammed and you can't get the seatbelt off. I don't know. There could be circumstances you can think of. You've got people saying, "Oh, it's hot and sweaty under that helmet," you know, but there's trade-offs, right? And every
Mhm.
time we've gone through these, there's always been the trade-offs has been the issue. It would seem like that would be the issue now, not just what is it, how many miles can it go before a safety intervention? But okay, if it might eventually have some kind of a minor accident compared to how many accidents does it prevent? How many times does it save a life or
Right.
injury?
Right. And certainly when the person's impaired, um, tired or drunk, we know that you can get substantial degradation on performance. So having the option, like the the truckers and those kind of things where they're tired, like, there've been times when I'm driving on the highway and you're pushing it, right?
Yeah,
You're tired and you just keep going.
I've
I
fallen
need to finish
asleep.
that run.
I've
Yeah,
fallen asleep. I
right,
woke up like that. I
right,
was only in the gravel, but I mean, I was flat gone coming back from
right, right.
San Francisco one time. Yeah.
Right. So for those more dangerous situations, it definitely is the ethical choice is to have that option as a seatbelt, as a cruise control, as something to enable people to as a requirement for the driver assist. Like if you froze the levels of what there are now, that you would be safer with this system for 10%, 20% of the situations that are out there.
So another element that's played into the story over the last 36 hours has been the Model Y long in China.
Mhm.
And it came, I guess it was a couple of days ago, we got the first kind of views of it. Now there's lots and lots of videos, people over in China doing videos as almost like commercials. And the everybody in the United States gets all excited. Oh boy, that I know people that want to buy that. I'd want to buy one of those. Everybody got all excited. And then Elon like throws cold water on that this morning. And
Mhm.
the statement had two parts. The first part was it won't come out until the end of next year.
Mhm.
And people could have gone, well, that's a long time, but okay. But then
Mhm.
he says, if at all, because it really doesn't fit into a world where everybody's going to be using robotaxis.
Mhm.
Talk to me. What did you think is that whole, as that played out in your brain?
So it seemed to be indicating that by the end of next year, so that means 12 to 15 months, the focus is on FSD and Robotaxi rollout and on getting Cybercab because we have seen some Cybercabs and they've said, Tesla has said that those were unboxed process created. So so he's saying that that would be a um, all-consuming task for Tesla in the United States to properly roll that out.
Hmm.
I can see that could be the case, and it would be if you had limited resources, then that would be the clear choice that I would want to do that more. Um, I'm confused as to why it would be limited resources,
Right,
because it's supposed to be on the same Model Y lines.
right,
So it seems like an easy um, addition. That was the whole point. What's that going to mean? An easy addition that we could bring that forward.
yeah,
Um, so it goes against some previous statements that were made that, hey, we're going to accelerate this and do new models, mini Y, assume mini Y, assume large Y on the same lines.
right,
So for the same lines, you have 30,000 people in Austin or 20,000 people in Fremont. If you do something on another line, you have another building with 10,000 people working on it, doing a Cybercab, you could do it.
should be able to handle it.
You
Yeah,
should be able to handle it. Yeah. So the some statements say that you're trying to not Osborne and not kill sales of
right,
Y.
right,
I thought we were a month or two away from releasing it.
right.
So um, uh, I'm so one is super positive if it is for the reasons he stated that they need to do a lot of Cybercab. It takes this extra effort to go as fast as possible with it. The going as fast as possible with Cybercab and with unboxed processes. If that is the lift that you have to do, then getting 2 million of those is better than doing 200,000 more YLs
Right,
or
right,
300,000 YLs.
right,
So the numbers work out on that choice. Um, I just don't see why it would be either or.
right,
Um,
right, right, right. Well, so part of it, of course, people are characterizing it as, and you could get an easy read of what Elon said, which is the future is robocabs, robotaxis, or uh, robotaxis and cybercabs. A six-passenger version is not necessarily going to add anything to the mix. You need
I think it's about 5 to 10% in the optimal case where it's your Uber X, Uber XL,
right,
where you have these larger vehicles. It would be a good vehicle for that, but um, it's again not essential. It's not the core thing. If I needed to nail the core product
right,
for Robotaxi would be Cybercab or just those other versions of the vehicles.
Right.
Um, and we'll see over the next few months if the production is so large for those things where he said we're not doing that, then in a few months we'll know. Like supposedly, then you would push out your cybercab. Like if they don't push out cybercab until middle of next year, then why didn't you also slip in a YL right here?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that means if Elon is, you know, saying this is what we have to focus on, then I would think that things have to happen between now and the end of the year, definitely by Q1 at the latest. That
Oh,
you
yeah.
do something major
Right.
pushing these things out.
Right.
So that'd be great to see. If those are the correct things, then I would love to see that.
Right. Right. Right.
Um,
Elon says a little while ago, kind of out of the blue, I would have never guessed that this was even on the thinking. Elon Musk says it's a good idea for future Teslas to ship with a built-in Starlink Wi-Fi hotspot for passengers. So
mm,
I'm not, again, this is outside of my kin, so a little
mm.
above my pay grade. So a hotspot as opposed to an actual connection. Is that what he's saying? And does that use less bandwidth to Starlink, or what is it? Why is it a hotspot?
Um, so you have to have the Starlink connection. So you have to have the receiver in. So your mini dish or they have flat dishes for Starlink to come in. So they sound like it'd be using the broadband version of it. Although they have direct to cell phone. So in theory, you could also have just a cell phone receiver and antenna with the system. But then I think it's just less bandwidth that way. So I want the nice connection. So then hotspotting just means you're adding in, all our phones can become hotspots. You just set the software, set the communication thing, and then you're giving anyone else, if you have an open hotspot within the system, you could then have your own like Wi-Fi network inside the car. It could be Wi-Fi, it could be Bluetooth, think of other communications around how you're hotspotting and sharing the bandwidth to everyone. But it sounds like it's going to be all the hardware and software automated to just do it so that when you're in the car, you're receiving it. I view that as a relatively straightforward technical challenge. And also it indicates that for Starlink that they're looking at this kind of like rebroadcasting solution where you could like you can create Wi-Fi zones.
Right,
It's like some cities have done that, like
right,
malls have done it where you have Wi-Fi everywhere,
right.
right? So so now that would be a good solution um for Starlink to
Create that.
transmit, like do the back end from Starlink and then get to different spots and then enable connection everywhere. There's different bandwidth spectrum frequency you can do that on, where you can get a very far connection. It's like I could, just like I could have a cell tower and then you could have it broadcast. So if the cell tower was, instead of being wired up, it could be
Mhm.
connected to Starlink in the back end. I could, you know, uh, spread out communication over like a mile or something like that, or several miles. Like you
Got it.
can have a really broad range, which, yeah, it's just a way to make it accessible to many, many customers. So one, it's a clear use case for the vehicle, and then they could use the same thing if they have Robovan, they're like buses,
Right,
have a
right.
lot of people inside.
Yeah.
And then other non-vehicle related ways of spreading this communication around.
Yeah, wow. Okay. All right. I thought this was interesting today. Elon responded to this. Somebody said, you can lease a Tesla for less than the fuel and the maintenance on a gas vehicle.
Right.
So I guess you'd be figuring California for sure, it's $5 a gallon. That's
hmm
doesn't take much to get up to. But I know we've got some new leases out on used Teslas
hmm
that are down around $200 a month. So that would certainly seem to be pretty close. to at least in some states, it would be the equivalent of what you're already just paying for gas and maintenance.
Yeah, especially if you're having, there are still SUVs and other vehicles that get 20 miles per gallon.
Yeah,
Um, some that only have 25 miles per gallon. So at $5 per gallon, you're looking at a buck every 5 miles. And then if you had 200 of that, so then if you're doing 500 miles in a month, just from gas,
yeah,
you're over the 199 bucks. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, Sam Altman says today that GPT-5 was a misfire and he's betting on GPT-6. That's a
Hmm.
pretty big statement. So I thought the one cool part about GPT-5 was that it would automatically pick the level of need that you had. I guess you could override it, hopefully, if you thought that you weren't getting enough. But I thought that was a really good idea. But apparently, maybe some of the rest of it wasn't up to uh, open AI standards. Especially, I've noticed Grok seems to be winning a lot of different contests lately.
So and yeah, it's the overall performance. The fact that they had the routing that you talked about, where it goes to an inexpensive model or a reasoning model or a heavy model, and automatically choose based on the problem that you gave it. One was, I think, that some people didn't think that how the choices that it made were
Oh,
necessarily correct. So
oh, I
some
see.
people didn't like that.
I see.
And then the other thing was that the top level performance didn't really move up as much as they thought. Also, from the day that they released it and before, there were people who were, you know, getting early previews who thought it was performing really, really great. And it felt a step up,
Yeah,
depending on
yeah,
how much a step up, some level of a step up.
yeah.
And then over the last 2, 3 weeks, it seemed to not do as well. So that kind of like serving it out to many, many people became harder than a customized, really great experience for a smaller group, right? So it kind of took a step
Back.
forward or
Yeah.
step and a half forward and took a step back. So then the level of difference was small, and there were people who preferred the 4.0. So before they were saying, okay, we can get rid of all that because this is just better,
Yeah. Yeah.
which if it was just better, then that's a fine choice. But then it was not necessarily better. It was also colder, not as not giving you the right personality
Oh,
on your answers and stuff
yeah,
like
I
that.
did read that.
So
Yeah.
the details of it were off, and just not the like. No one would have said, "Okay, I'm going from GPT-2 to GPT-3, right? And I really want to keep GPT-2." No, it was
Yeah.
like, it was just way, way better. It was just like apples and oranges. It was like, I want the new thing. I I forget about the old stuff. I'm making a big leap. GPT-3 to GPT-4, some levels of a substantial move there, although not as discernible.
Right.
I think it's also because of that they have not gotten more compute,
Mhm.
right? They got a 5x compute because you go from H100s to B200, the B300 chips, new chips, but they didn't get more than 30,000 simultaneous, which um, Grok and XAI have. Although Grok and XAI have been behind in terms of software, in
Mhm.
terms of
Mhm.
certain
Right.
tricks
Right.
that the
Right.
guys have been doing it longer
Right.
have refined out. Um, but yeah.
So here's a question that's been on my mind for a while, and you're just the guy I think that can answer it. It appears that Grok, like our vehicles, is rolling out new iterations all the time. It's like he says,
Mhm.
"Oh, just re-up your open, close your app and bring it up again, or refresh your app, and you'll get new capabilities like almost daily, a few times a
Right.
week, and which is similar to our experience with Teslas. Are the other guys doing that? Are they only doing updates when they have an update?
Um, I think they continue to do reasoning improvement. Um, so so those things continue to improve.
Okay.
And but it seems less than what XAI is doing. Um, although there are some fairly frequent releases on some of the other models. Um, and improvements as they get more data and do stuff like Anthropic, releasing 4.1, for their coding models, that they continue to get refined. But their step changes are less,
Mm.
um,
Mhm.
more mature, or whatever it is. But also the issue of not enough compute, which xAI is installing more compute all the time, right? They, from the beginning of this year, 8 months,
Yes, yes.
they've gone up, you know, several times, like 4 times, maybe 20 times as much compute, which gives them more um, room to just easily improve,
Yeah.
right? Others have to do it with clever algorithmic improvements and other things, which can still be done, but it's just a harder, not as automatic. It's just I'm just cranking the compute and just making it better and better all the time, reasoning wise, pre-training wise, other things wise. And now they have two major data centers, so they can just keep going on and on. So they're supposed to release 4.2, which
Right.
Elon, by the end of this month, or maybe 3, 4 weeks, by the middle of September, they should release 4.2, which he promises to be get them the title again to be better than the other
Right.
models. So, and then by the end of the year, a version 5, I think using the 500,000 B200, um, that would be about 25 times more compute than Grok 3. So,
So I said to you probably a month ago, 6 weeks ago, that the big difference currently seemed to be between between X and everybody else, xAI and everybody else, was that everybody else had consumer facing stuff and enterprise facing stuff that was better, more sophisticated, and that xAI, they might be winning on some of the competitions, but that the consumer facing stuff wasn't as good. I feel like over the last 3 or 4 weeks, that has flipped, and that xAI seems to be coming out with really good consumer facing and really good enterprise capabilities. And Elon's been putting up the numbers. It feels like enterprise and consumers are jumping ship, or at least adding a Grok to their potential list of LLM. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't use LLM anymore. Their list of models that they're at least choosing between on a daily basis.
yeah, I think it's getting fully competitive, especially once they get the Imagine video and picture stuff, because that's been something that they've been substantially weaker than other models on. That they should get fully caught up in all aspects. They have a coding model, a multimodal model, getting speed on their answers. So the others like Anthropic, Google Gemini, OpenAI, even some of the Chinese models, with DeepSeek and whatever. So there's this level of capability that once you're fully refined, you should have it. So the fact that XAI started only 2 years ago and got to this level, they have extra compute, and then they should be fully caught up with everything, because all the others are doing it. There's no reason that XAI should be behind in those things. That they should do those things and have more compute, so then they would have a better model. That once you get everything coding wise comparable, refined user experience comparable, then the fact that they have a 10x, 100x compute advantage should lead to a model that is 100, 200 points better on the all the comparisons.
Yeah. So GPT-5 just casually did some new mathematics. This is according to Fraser X. I don't know if you saw this or not. It says Sebastian Bubeck gave it an open problem from this is I'm so far out of my league on this one. Anyway, it gave him an open problem from convex optimization, something humans had only partially solved. GPT-5 Pro sat down, reasoned for 17 minutes, and produced a correct proof, improving the new bound from 1/L all the way to 1.5/L. This wasn't in the paper. It wasn't online, the paper that it was dealing with. It wasn't memorized. It was new math, and that was verified by Bubeck himself. Humans later closed the gap to 1.75L, but GPT-5 independently advanced the frontier. A machine just contributed original research level mathematics. If you're not completely stunned by that, you're not paying attention. We've officially entered the era where AI isn't just learning math, it's creating it. And you say,
I was expecting that they would be able to do this. They have gotten to, like second place in coding things. They've been pushing the barriers on, well, they did, protein folding with different kinds of AI, right? Which pushed that barrier forward. So if you put enough effort, with people and the AI, you'd expect it. It has been getting these kind of new discovery results, new science. And now that as the models get bigger and put more data into it, and they put the effort into getting these kind of discoveries, um, yeah, this should happen more and more. That it's just just like discovering new chess moves, new Go moves, that if you have it constantly not tiring, just cranking on data, that we wouldn't have found everything. I mean, in a big enough thing to search in, you will find new stuff. You'll push the thing for take this and this, A and B, and then you get this other thing. It would be connections that if we just had a lot more time to do, we could find those as well. And so if we put everything in front of it, it's like complete some of the work we didn't have enough smart people to achieve.
so you and I could spend probably 2 hours on the next part of this question, but so I've been again, my philosopher wife, you know. Uh, by the way, for those who don't know what she is, an English professor with a PhD and three master's degrees. So she does know her philosophy pretty well. Um, she and I were just discussing this a couple of nights ago, is where does iteration end and where does creativity start? And this is, I think, going to be the big question as we get closer and closer to something that might be called, singularity or even artificial superintelligence. So would you call what was described in this posting, would you consider that just to be an iteration based on extrapolation, interpolation, reasoning by analogy, or would you consider this to be anything remotely close to creative?
So there have been some papers where people, I think a Chinese team, try to put together an architecture for scientific discovery. And the split was about, I think, 40-50% was what can be considered kind of like iteration. I'm just like grinding through it, pushing forward on an area, just doing the work
Mhm.
of like moving, like on football, I'm doing a handoff, I'm doing the running game, I'm pushing the ball down the field,
Right,
right? So that kind of thing, which is, just iteration.
right,
But you got to do the work, you got to block, you got to move the thing forward, right? So
right.
that's a bunch of work to do that. And then there's, 40-50%, which would be I'm looking at a particularly good um, area of research. You know, if physics thought it was string theory, I don't believe it's string theory, but it could be um, in engineering, batteries, right? I'm working on better battery chemistries. It's it's not just repeating stuff. I need to apply some a particular domain. I'm going to look at sodium batteries. I'm going to look at whatever, right? I look at the materials and not quite iteration, but it's a um, proven method, a proven, it's a fishing, I'm fishing where the fish are kind of thing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So then you can do that. And then there's something that's like more broadly creative about 10% of things, right? So in the field of science, they look at that. The other thing is for the aspect of creativity, how much is trial and error and stuff like that. Someone who's done that, Scott Adams, who wrote Dilbert, who, like he had the cartoon, it is something that people consider creative.
Right,
But he says there's a lot of trial and error in that. So similar to comedians who have to get in front of an audience, try out
right.
their jokes, right? There's a lot of creativity, but then there's also a process of refined trial and error. art, other things have that in it. You put up movies and stuff, it's like people get better by doing that kind of activity, right? So, um, so I think that split is, there's grinding forward, doing the work, there's fishing where the fish are, and then there's true innovation type things. But I think how much of that is also like if you have enough points connected, then you can get a certain amount of innovation because it's like I'm searching across this whole web of activity, and then I take one thing from really far apart, another, and then that becomes this, oh, that's an innovative thing that you did,
Right.
right?
Right.
So,
Yeah, and again, that's where I mentioned, it could be an extrapolation, but it could be a reasoning by analogy. I think I use the example on my water bottles that the cap people wanted a gusher and
mhm,
other people just wanted a sip.
yeah,
And so how could you make a cap that did both? And I invented a dual flow cap
mhm,
that used the same technology that was being used in another world, had nothing to do with bicycle water bottles, but it was in another world. There was, let's say a shower head, and you've got a gauge. You can change the shower head from fast to slow, or your faucet in your kitchen.
mhm,
So it wasn't ever done in water bottles before. So it was inventive, but it
mhm,
wasn't really totally creative. It was more like, you know, gathering the information from all my knowledge and saying, oh, what about we could
mhm.
use that approach?
Right. And then there's all these principles of, you know, rocket equations related to heat and other things like that. So if you know everything deeply about a problem,
Right.
and then you can also get it down to some basic principles and stuff, then you can think creatively about how do I overcome this particular thing, and you can apply innovative approaches to, to close gaps and make something that can work. So, so I think it's that if you know enough, you can understand how to be very innovative. But there's historically been areas where um, Einstein's discovery of relativity and other things, where he imagined himself to be the photon or something like that. It's like you know that was a crazy leap,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Same thing for other new moves, new strategies where
Right.
um, people were thinking about stuff and they didn't make the innovation was that much of a putting things that were that far apart together. Um,
Yeah, I think sometimes, the most obvious, I guess, example is where the idea comes to you whole cloth.
mhm,
You're not even thinking about that subject.
right.
And all of a sudden, boom, it just hits you. Oh my gosh, you could do this. Or,
Mhm,
oh my gosh, I mean, it's happened to me a few times in my lifetime where I've had these whole cloth ideas.
mhm,
Sometimes it's been when I've been praying, and
mhm,
God seems to be giving me this idea that's completely outside of
mhm.
anything that I was contemplating at the time. And in whole cloth. I mean, with such detail that you're like, but I wasn't even on the subject matter, and I got this in so much detail. I think Beethoven talked
Mhm.
about, it would just come to him, the entire symphony, and all he
Right.
had to do is write it down. Uh,
So John Cleese, the great comedian with the Monty Python, he has some books where he gives advice to people about business and other things. And he discusses how um, when he does a lot of rewriting of the comedic bits that he has.
mhm.
And he says that once he gets into his head, a first draft and is thinking about it, that it can be in that working in the background, that he can be doing other things,
Right,
gardening, music, whatever it is, and then his mind will be working on it in the background, that
right,
background processing.
right, right,
And then when he goes at it again, it will be greatly improved,
right,
right? So it's understanding how minds work that
right.
way that you can get um, this background improvement, this whole cloth thing, which isn't necessarily um, a magical thing. It just how is our mind working, and even synthetic minds can be working where it's like it's working in the background, grinding away on it, and then getting to a far better solution.
All right, completely changing subjects. The Fed doesn't seem that interested in lowering rates.
Mm-hmm.
People are getting nervous that Jackson Hole is going to be a bust. And
Mm-hmm.
then maybe a month from now, or so, yeah, a little bit less than a month from now, we will not get even a 25 reduction. And part of that conversation now is also involving the idea that we might be getting into a slowdown in the economy that would be a little too slow, and that the Fed is not thinking ahead enough about job losses that might be coming as a result of this slowdown.
Mm-hmm.
And that you could add to that, they're not thinking about the job losses that are coming as a result of productivity coming out of AI. And somebody said today, I think it was Arian, he was talking about that these slowdowns in the job picture don't necessarily happen like a slow curve. It's like somebody lays off 50,000 people, and then it gives everybody else permission to do it.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen
Yeah.
that a couple of times in the last couple of years.
Right.
In fact, Elon was one of the ones that triggered some of those layoffs when he bought X, or Twitter at the time. So I, this is all to set up this. It seems to me that once again, the Fed is maybe missing the ethical decision making, or even the practical decision making process of what a 50 or 100 basis point cut might do that might be worth the risk. Right now, we know that durables is the only part of the equation. Well, durables and housing that hasn't come back.
Mm-hmm.
The durables help manufacturing. The durables help trucking. The durables help retail through places like Home Depot, who
Mm-hmm.
had their report yesterday and said, "Hey,
Yeah.
our regular business is fine. It's the
Mm-hmm.
big expensive stuff that nobody's buying right now." And the 50 or 100 basis point cut might help the bond to rally and have those rates come down as well. If we get under 6%, that's going to really help housing a ton. So
Mm-hmm.
those two things that would be really, really, really good for the overall economy seem to be worth the risk of doing the cut. And okay, maybe we were wrong and we can raise it back later. What do you think?
As I've said before, and I'll say again, I think the argument can be made that Jerome Powell and this Federal Reserve is among the worst in U.S. history, going back 100 years or so, right? That their um, argument to be 12 months late dealing with transitory inflation, and then allowing that to get to
9%.
9%, 10%. Yeah, I think that number should have been like 10, 15%, 15% because of, measuring it the way we did before, like including the interest rate, that kind of thing. So they, said that they were data dependent, but then they ignored the data, made up some reason not to do something, and then caused this problem, which we're now trying to completely put the genie back in the bottle. And so they're not anticipating things. They're not, you know, avoiding breaking things. So it's kind of like when we have a crisis and banks blow up, again, like they did with, Silicon Valley Bank or whatever, that, or with jobs breaking, that only when things break, then I will clean up the spilt milk and try and do something about it. So them finding reasons to not do something, to not get on the same page as problems. Not even like anticipate, but like the problems with, the job numbers not being good, just happen. There is data now saying that the jobs are a problem, right?
Yeah.
And they're saying, uh, I want to not act. I want to make up a reason not to act and to leave things where they are and to always make, my mistakes in one direction. So
So do you think
they could end up in that.
yeah, do you think at this point it has anything to do with him being a short timer and he's figuring out how can I do my last 6 months without making some mistake? Or do you think he's always been kind of prone to to avoid mistakes as opposed to be
Well, he wants to make a mistake a particular way. Before it was I'm going to let it run, and I'm making mistakes in that way. Now I'm, you know, because their team created more of an inflation problem than it needed to be, and now they're acting late. Now they want to get, everything back down to that below 2% level or whatever it is, even though we're very close on it. And I think we're being overly restrictive that even if that was correct, like 1.5% over a 2.5% thing, you know, it would still mean you have 100 basis points to cut, or at least 75 basis points. You can make those cuts happen. Um, and so I just I view him as incompetent. I view the team as incompetent. Them getting to like 3 out of 7 that are conservative, like the numbers are there to justify the cut. And the fact that they could talk themselves out of it for the 4 of them to leave it running for another 2 months, you know, um, I think they should start cutting. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But unfortunately, we're not on that board. Darn.
yeah, yeah.
If only we were on the board. Anything else on Tesla today that I didn't cover that we should have talked about?
Do we talk about the fact that he's saying FSD 14 being sentient and being really good? Yeah, so those are the main things that I think about.
Okay. All right. So Tesla has managed in the after hours to finally get back into the green, 8 cents. So we had a pretty rough day today. People are giving all kinds of reasons and excuses for it, but quite frankly, I read the news every day as you do. I think there was only good news. I didn't see, and there was a couple of lawsuits that are ridiculous, but basically, I don't think the lawsuits had anything to do with it. I think it was basically just riding along with the Nasdaq being down, the S&P being down, and I think both of those are trimming. Um, Maybe they just needed an excuse, and their excuse is maybe there's not going to be cuts.
Right. Yeah. So I don't think it was much of nothing to worry about. I think that we're still holding up fine, and can get, the main thing is over the next month, get FSD 14 out, get the Robotaxi expansion going, have a good number October 2nd for the Q3 number, and then everything should be fine. I would
And
like to see a new car though.
you like to see a new car. Well, like I mean at least the Model Q, yes.
Yeah.
What about um, what if we do cut, in your opinion, both fundamentally, but also from the technical side, if we do get a full 5% pullback or even a 10% pullback, which would not be unusual at this point, given that we're so far, up there. What do you think Tesla does, assuming we do not have a solid next move in the robotaxi business, that we're just kind of going along as we are? Good news, but not taking the person out of, not taking the safety rider out, not expanding the number of cars, not doing any of the things that we've talked about that might be a catalyst. So we're just about where we are now on that. And the stock market goes down 5 to 10%. Do you think Tesla goes back and tests 275, or do you think it manages to hold above 3, or what do you think happens?
I can see it going down to 250 if it
250.
doesn't have
Okay.
positive news. If a big 10% drop down, then based on beta go down 20%, I could see that happening pretty easily. They would need to have substantially other good news to counter the market going down.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Well, that's useful. I think you're probably right. Okay, what do we got here? We have got let's go with the bonds, because that's where I always like to start. And we've got the 10-year down an entire 1/10 of a basis point in the pre-markets, but it's at 4.295. At least we've gotten back under 4.3. I think that's probably, good news if you're looking for some pieces of good news. And it was over 4.3 yesterday, so that's a good move for one day. Any thoughts on the bonds?
Nope.
Okay, then we got oil unchanged. Brent's up a tad, but it's sitting at 63. So I actually, it looks like I had checked earlier, and it looks to me like everything is flat as it has been kind of all week. We did have this sell off today, but it wasn't really that crazy a sell off. So oil right now, natural gas, everything is real flat. Gold down $2. I mean, it's copper, yeah, all flat. I mean, it's really across the board. Let me just really quickly look at Bitcoin because it's been, I mean, sure, going up 993 for the day is, it's almost a full percent, but for Bitcoin, it's not a huge move. But we're back to 114,220. Any thoughts on where Bitcoin goes from here?
Um, I think it should go up through the end of the year, but it could, definitely have a pullback before it ends up higher.
Do you think it's same thing? If the market comes down 10%, does it come down 10 or more?
Um, Bitcoin can move without the market, but yeah, generally you would it could pull back, yeah. But stuff can happen in crypto world, where new approvals happen, other things happen, and everyone's really happy there. So it can move pretty strongly counter. There's some certain things going on there, like getting the stable coin, other things passed. You know,
Right.
legislatively, things could happen that could move it.
Right. So you got the Dow down 0.15, S&P down 0.17, and the Nasdaq down 0.21. A lot of talk on CNBC and other places about a rotation. Do you think I think there's evidence that we've had some rotation into the Russells, into some of the value stocks out of the Magnificent Seven and other techs. Would you, even if we didn't have a full-on 5% correction, would you imagine some correction in the techs in order to be part? And so actually, same guy, L. Arian, said that if the techs fall, it's not a true rotation. The techs
Hmm.
have to be okay, and then the rest have to gain in order for it to be a true rotation. I don't know whether
Hmm.
that's true or not. That's again over my pay grade. But what do you think? Do you think we'll
Well,
see?
next week we have I think exactly 1 week from now we have the NVIDIA
Oh,
numbers coming
yeah,
out, and
yeah.
those are supposed to be really good. So if the AI story, which we had from Meta and Microsoft with really strong Q2, saying AI is doing really, really well, that reinforcing that story and continuing that number, because Meta and Microsoft also guided to a far better uh, end of year, right? So um, that revival of the AI story could happen next week.
Oh, yeah.
So that would then, if NVIDIA came out with great numbers and said stuff that people would say, oh, that's good news for Microsoft, Meta, Google,
Right.
and et cetera, right? So um, the fact, the short attention span of like, hey, Meta and Microsoft said things are really good, we're guiding really good, it's going to be going through the end of the year, and then they say, you didn't tell me that for the last week. I'm feeling nervous. I'm going to pull back. It's like, okay, whatever. But so that was very positive news for the end of the year, and it wasn't just their number; it was their guiding to a good number, right? And Nvidia seems like they're going to have a really good next week, and announcing that the quarter was good.
Right.
So um, in terms of the wall of worry and why would you sell off if this still continuing this generational move, right?
Right.
And then if XAI comes out with 4.2 and it's really good, like the number of good news things that can happen week to week related to this, like once I said, like once the XAI says, no, or Tesla says, okay, we're going to have 100
Right.
vehicles
Right.
in Austin,
Yeah. And open it
right?
up to all comers.
Oh, open to all comers. That could be just a few weeks away.
Right.
So how much weakness, how much paper handing can people have of like, oh, I just can't wait another month,
Right.
right? Right. So,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot of those folks out there, but yeah,
right.
and
Well,
that's
to
all.
me, it should just it shouldn't be more than a 5% move. Can it be? Sure. People can freak out. Something can happen globally. People use it as an excuse to freak out. But then I can't see it being a long-term downturn considering how much this AI stuff is going to progress, how much the robotaxi story is going, and how frequent the updates will be saying, hey, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening, this is
Yeah.
happening. FSD 14 coming out next month. Like, how late can it be if they're saying it's going to be a month? Because the AI team for Tesla, when they say it's going to be 1 month from now, they've been
Pretty
hitting
accurate.
that for the last year.
Yeah.
People can say, okay, they were wrong before, but for the last year, they've been saying, okay, we're going from 12, we're going to 13,
Right.
we're going to deliver all these features, and then all the features come out the next month, right? So I think that's pretty reliable aspects to it. And the amount of training compute they have also reinforces the fact that they should be able to get these results to happen. So um, it seems like that should be playing out. Can we get disappointment for a month or two? I guess. But I don't think the bull case story of going to an ARK Invest world where a lot of this stuff is happening, um, you know, like just said, like we're focusing on, this AI capability, robotaxi, versus doing some other car models, right?
Right.
So um, it's not like he was making some long-term promise. It's like over the next few months.
Yeah,
So
yeah, 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 yeah. No, I think that was a real tell. I really
yeah,
think, that particular statement really says a lot about his confidence that it's a done deal. That
right.
and of course, those of us who are driving it around every day, and I'm still, and I keep reminding people I'm on hardware 3.
Mhm,
Okay.
right.
And I've got, 660 miles in the last week,
Mhm,
with basically one intervention. And, it could have been a bad one. But that's why it's supervised, and it's why it's hardware 3. But that's one out of 660 miles. And the rest of it was like I had a chauffeur. I mean, it's just
right.
amazing. All right. I think that's all I've got for now.
Yeah, that's it.
Let me just say to all of you out there that I might have a show at 7:45 tonight, but this one's so late, I might skip it tonight. I know that would be shocking, but it just might happen. We'll see. See how brilliant I can be between now and then. Brian, thanks as always
Mhm.
for coming on and making me smarter. It's been
Okay,
great.
thank you.
And to all of you out there, it's been great talking to you.